December 24th. I guess it always was going to come down to this, one way or another. You and me. Since when did you get so sentimental, insect? That's a good question. But I have a better one for you. How would you like to be buried? With your son. Oh, you want to take it there? Fine then. Let's not waste any more time. But of course, let us begin.
Thank you to our Valor patrons Rebel 4765, Midnight Gem Lord, and Sean. And thank you to our $3 members Recliner Plays and Rebel 4765. And another thank you to our $10 patron Robbie Uchiha. And another very big thank you to our $25 patron Alex Ice Rose. And another very big thank you to our $25 member Alex Ice Rose.
Before we have this battle of the strongest sorcerer and the king of curses, please remember to leave your own thoughts on who's going to win in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also hit that little notification so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also I do a Patreon below. Each video as one $1 exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as little as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Now let's hop into the battle. What's up guys, Pencil here, and here we are to talk about the mighty battle between the King of Curses, Ryomen Sukuna, and the strongest sorcerer of the modern day, Gojo Satoru, and who shall win. Notably, this will be a little bit different from my regular versus battles, because not only will we be going over power, speed, and abilities, but we will be adding a fourth section, which I shall call narrative, because that's going to be a massive factor in this fight, because we don't actually have all the data, even though this fight is very likely right around the corner. So let's not waste any more time, and let's hop right into the analysis. So, starting off with power, Gojo is Gojo, aka the strongest thing in the thing, which is the verse. Notably, this is not just implied by like the in-context narrative, people like Kenjaku being like, oh yeah, Gojo's the strongest, people like Jogo fully acknowledging that, oh yeah, Gojo's the strongest, but also like outside the narrative too. On multiple occasions, Gojo has been explained by Gege as the concept of the pinnacle of the verse, the concept of a power ceiling put to form and put to page in the form of a character. That is what Gojo is meant to represent, so his power is very clearly matching that within the narrative. When it comes to Gojo's feats, he actually doesn't have many feats, shockingly enough, in terms of like super duper crazy high scale. You don't have him out here slapping special grades or anything like that, and I mean special grade sorcerers, but we do have a lot of comparative scaling and statements for his raw power. Notably, we are going to be taking a current Gojo, not a teen Gojo. Teen Gojo would be absolutely annihilated by Sukuna. I don't think I need to explain that, but you can take a guess. Unless you want to do something like Teen Gojo versus like one finger or three finger Sukuna, then maybe that would be more of a close fight, but no, it wouldn't, because all Sukuna would have to do is open domain and then Gojo would instantly lose. But in terms of raw power, Gojo has feats against extremely mighty creatures. Obviously, his first major fight within the narrative is, ironically enough, against Sukuna. Now, admittedly, I'm in the camp that the Sukuna fingers make Sukuna stronger. They don't just flat amp him, or like they don't just give him more techniques or anything like that. I do think they get him stronger, so beating on one finger Sukuna, while impressive, isn't necessarily too much. His more impressive feats start when he actually starts fighting the special grades of the disaster curses. First things first, he absolutely bullies Jogo, like it's not even close, like it's genuinely embarrassing to watch that fight sometimes, because Jogo gets absolutely body bagged after talking so much smack. But with that being the case, the beatdown on the disaster curses and their whole group only continues later on within the narrative, as when Gojo shows up in the Goodwill training event, Hanami immediately knows that this is not their time, and they immediately vanish and almost get wiped by a hollow purple, and they still take a whole lot of damage from a purple that they seemingly had dodged. So Gojo once again is proven he's on that special grade curse tier of output and energy, but realistically he's very far beyond that. And we see that no better than when he has his penultimate fight before he gets sealed. It's the absolute annihilation of the disaster curses once again. He has to shut down the limitless technique for the most part within that fight, because they are using domain amplification, which can actually override his lesser limitless, seemingly his passive limitless neutral, which allows him to obviously access the infinity, which makes that he cannot be touched. However, not only does he reveal later on within the fight that he can just casually overpower this by simply strengthening his curse technique, which implies that he can amplify the neutral limitless even more than what's already there that's preventing most things in the entire verse from ever touching him. But on top of that, he uses the simple expansion of his curse technique and nothing more to absolutely annihilate Hanami, like straight up wipe a special grade more durable than Jogo right off the map by simply flexing in his general direction and absolutely annihilating Hanami. And this is after he took his bare hands, note bare hands, and tore Hanami's roots out and tore off Jogo's arm easily. Notably, he doesn't actually hit Choso or Mahito, but they also don't actually try to fight him that actively. They usually run away and hide before that. And obviously, they all get infinite voided, but bada bing bada boom. That didn't necessarily do much in the grand scheme of things due to a certain someone popping up and Gojo's main job in that scenario, which was to save as many people as possible. Then he got sealed. But he actually has a really amazing feat when he gets out of being sealed, which is actually one-shotting Uraume. Now, this may sound a little bit strange, but you gotta remember who Uraume is. Uraume is far from fodder. Like, legitimately, their feats of absolutely annihilating all of Jujutsu High, requiring special grade Yuki Sakumo to step in and actually interfere, and also getting poisoned on top of that from blocking Choso's piercing blood, is pretty darn crazy. And also with their maximum output, they're able to actually catch off guard and restrain Maki. And in fact, you can definitely argue it isn't even being caught off guard, because like everyone sees Uraume after Maki is going hand to hand with Sukuna alongside Itadori, and awakened post Curse Naoya fight Maki is unable to dodge the massive wave of ice that comes at her. Notably, this is super duper impressive because this Maki is confirmed to be an equal to Toji Zenin, and while admittedly 18 Gojo also absolutely annihilates Toji Zenin, the fact that a Gojo casually one-shots this Uraume physically is genuinely insane and talks to the level of power that Gojo has. Though ironically, his feats kind of cease there in terms of like actual people he's fought, because he's been out of the narrative for, I'd say, at least over half of it. Thusly, he's not necessarily allowed to get too many fights. That's why a lot of his scaling comes from the external reactions that other characters have to him in terms of his raw power. Things like this include Kenjaku being like, yes, we cannot defeat him. And this is the same Kenjaku who, once again, face-tanked a black hole and milli-rocked on any block all over a special grade Yuki Sakumo who made the black hole. Absolutely insane. And notably, this is the same Suguru Geto's body, possessed by Kenjaku, that literally has numerous special grade curses from all around the world in all different backgrounds with all different crazy kinds of hacks and abilities, yet Kenjaku 100% believes that they still cannot take down Gojo. This is the same Kenjaku that also has a barrierless domain expansion that still 100% in their own mind is not enough to defeat Gojo. And this is even sort of backed up by the fact that if Sukuna, ironically enough, did not intervene when Gojo was going to absolutely annihilate Geto, who was possessed by Kenjaku, then Kenjaku would have perished right then and there. Meaning that Gojo pretty solidly scales above Kenjaku in terms of raw power. Once again, this is super duper impressive because this essentially clears Gojo of the entire special grade tier. He is drastically above every other special grade sorcerer, whether that be Yuta, Kenjaku, Yuki, even Suguru Getsu when he was alive and not possessed by Kenjaku. All of them are absolutely cleared by Gojo in terms of just sheer raw power. And notably, this isn't just within his techniques, but his general physical output. His best feat in terms of direct scaling to other characters in the entire series is him punching Uraume and immediately one-shotting them. That was not no special technique. That was not anything crazy. He just punched them really, really hard in the stomach and they went flying. And also he clashes with Sukuna, or Meguna, but still, that isn't necessarily anything too crazy that I can directly get to quantifying. But with that being the case, another major point of contention for where Gojo sits is his relativity to Sukuna. So let's talk a little bit about Sukuna. Sukuna unfortunately lacks a lot of the external narrative statements that Gojo has of like being the strongest. A lot of the general consensus around him being the strongest usually comes from one, his internal narrative feats, and also just the general discussion about 20 Finger Sukuna being the monster and the prime beast of the Heian era, which was the strongest and golden era of Jujutsu sorcery. In terms of general feats, Sukuna, especially in Megumi's body, has been showing out, to put it very, very lightly. Obviously, he lost to Gojo in their initial confrontation, but once again, that was one Finger Sukuna. Then 3 Finger Sukuna comes in and absolutely bullies Megumi to the ultimate degree, but once again, not necessarily too impressive in comparison to Gojo. Then we get really impressive when it comes to 15 Finger. You can definitely make the argument that 15 Finger Sukuna actually bullies Jogo more than Gojo did, despite the fact that both were definitively bullying him. And considering the fact that Sukuna was literally casually toying with the man and did not get hit a single time, just like Gojo, they are both entirely clear of that level of power, without a shadow of a doubt. And then the real impressive stuff starts happening once he gets into Megumi's body. Even though he loses a lot of physical strength due to no longer being in the vessel of Yuji Itadori, he does still have all of his raw power and a lot of speed and durability and strength and all that good stuff. This is shown when he immediately boxes off an amped Yuji Itadori, someone that he himself acknowledges is amped, alongside awakened post-Naoya fight Maki Zenin, which is an entire beast in of herself. In a similar vein to this, Maki is completely equivocated to Toji, and Toji is a monstrous threat within the verse with extreme levels of power, able to absolutely annihilate high grade ones and even arguably certain special grades with his large amount of abilities, powers, and strength. But someone like Sukuna, while in a body that was consistently fighting back against him, was able to easily play patty cake with this awakened Maki and also this amped Itadori. And then he proceeds to one-shot Ryu. Now, the implications of this are tragic, pneumatic, to put it very lightly. Ryu was stated to have the highest cursed output in all the Culling games, and all of history up to his point in history. Now, this is what allowed him to directly start to bully and body bag and really smack around Yuta Okkotsu. The reason this is so important is the fact that Ryu got one shot by Sukuna. Meanwhile, the special grade stated second only to Satoru Gojo in terms of unusual abilities in some translations and raw power in other translations. Yeah, Yuta was not doing that to Ryu. Yuta, even after activating his full power and getting everything from Rika, was unable to blitz and or one-shot Ryu, but Maguna, while casually pulling up after the bath, did just that. And then Maguna's next feat is directly, and I mean directly, pulling up on Yorozu and absolutely bullying the poor woman to the point where she didn't land any more than like a few hits. Maybe 3, and even then he ate them all and proceeded to drop Maharaga on her dome piece. And notably, he defeated her without actually using any of his real power. He was kind of just toying with her. And notably, this Yorozu was no joke either, in a similar vein to Ryomen. This was a person who infiltrated and ended up becoming one of the Fujiwara clan, which is a position even higher than Uro, another special grade tier fighter that was actually giving Yuta Okkotsu trouble. And then if you want to go into the narrative hype behind Sukuna, this same Uro, who was a special grade tier warrior from the prime era of sorcerers, the Heian era, was shaking in her boots, to say the very least, when she felt Sukuna approaching. The raw power that even a 15-finger Sukuna emits is so much that it literally shakes special grades who are once again casually pulling up on Yuta Okkotsu, the second strongest sorcerer of the modern era, and causing them to cry and scream that the king of curses was in town. So in terms of raw power, it is very, very close between the two. However, due to the fact that we have no context or no qualifications for 20 Finger Sukuna out of anything other than headcanon, and the many external statements and even internal statements of the narrative that have Gojo placed as the strongest, I'm going to give the edge to Gojo in raw power. Notably, these who just don't necessarily have anything that can definitively put one above the other, you can definitely take their clash as an indication that a full power Sukuna would be stronger than Gojo, and I don't entirely blame you for that. It does seem to be somewhat implied by them clashing equally when Gojo is going to execute kenjaku, but at the same time, this is a Gojo that is fresh out the box, has absolutely no context, and likely hesitated slightly by seeing Sukuna in Megumi's body. So I'm just gonna have to give the edge to Gojo because he is stated to be the strongest on like multiple occasions, numerous occasions inside and outside of the verse. That kind of statement doesn't necessarily like give Sukuna any leeway, considering he lacks those statements. Don't get me wrong, he's literally called an imaginary war deity from a time of peak Jujutsu sorcery, but that's not the strongest. It's just very, very impressive. And unfortunately, none of their direct feats, as amazing as they are, really correlate to each other, even in the slightest. I could definitely see giving the edge to Sukuna in strength if you just take pure narrative feats, though. Like things that happen on screen within the narrative. One-shotting Ryu is a better feat than anything that Gojo has. Because Gojo's even one-shotting of Ryomen is still just Ryomen. Ryomen doesn't have any feats of pressing special grades like Ryu did. They just have a feat on Maki, and while Maki is still very impressive, Maki is not Yuta, the second strongest sorcerer behind Satoru Gojo. So Ryu getting absolutely one shot, I could definitely see it. So it really depends. If you want to go by general narrative stuff, then bada bing bada boom, Gojo is going to be stronger. That's just how the narrative, both inside and out, has written him. But if you want to go by sheer feat quantification, because feats over statements, then Sukuna should definitely have an edge at full power, based on their relative equivalency that we see in chapter 221, and also Sukuna just has better feats. One-shotting Ryu is better than one-shotting Ryomen. So there you go. Now let's move on to speed. Unlike power, speed seems to definitively be within Gojo's favor. Notably, this has to do with some of his hacks and also the fact that he's just like really fast. There are numerous different ways you can interpret speed and how fast certain characters are within JJK, to the point where that's worth a video all on its own in terms of discussion on what that could be. But Gojo is insanely fast. He is stated to be the fastest sorcerer, only followed up by Naobito Zenin, and based on the numerous interactions of Naobito Zenin after that statement, it appears that Gojo's gap is very wide. It's implied in chapter 221 that Gojo actually one-shot all the different curses that Kenjaku had laid when the seal was open, and then left, meaning that he didn't just immediately teleport out of there. He absolutely annihilated all the curses that Kenjaku laid that were meant to protect them, appeared in front of Kenjaku, and nearly one-shot Kenjaku, all within a matter of literal seconds. So his speed is out of this world. And once again, he did absolutely perception blitz Ryomen to the point where Ryomen couldn't perceive them. And this is the same Ryomen that, while not perception blitz, did manage to tag an awakened Maki after the fight with Cursed Naoya. A Maki who should very clearly be faster than any projection sorcerer user. And if you take the projection sorcerer users and the heavenly restriction users as the fastest characters in the verse, which a lot of people do, then you have Ryomen being able to tag them despite Maki having precog and noticing Ryomen and being a decent distance away and still getting caught. And then you have Gojo actually perception blitzing Ryomen, which is more impressive than any speed feats that Sukuna has. His best speed feat, ironically enough, is clashing with Gojo, because everything else would fall beneath that little scaling chain set up with Ryomen to Gojo, because of the whole like heavenly restriction users just being really fast. So with that being and like, here's the thing, think about it even more. We know that according to Sukuna, he was not hindered physically. His physical movements were not hindered in the fight when he was getting jumped by Itadori and Maki, meaning that Maki and Itadori together could like somewhat keep up with him in speed. They were not getting perception blitz like Ryu did not a chapter later. If Sukuna could have just ran, Sukuna would have just ran. But Gojo proceeds to perception blitz somebody who managed to tag Maki. So that level of speed seems to be entirely within Gojo's favor. He is a speedy little boy, because even with their like previous fights and previous implications, while speed blitzing Ryu is very impressive, speed blitzing Ryomen in this context is more impressive because Ryu's speed is definitively up in the air. Like, unless you go with like the cursed energy reinforcement arguments and you want to argue that Yuta is faster than Maki and Toji, and thusly Ryu being relative is once again more impressive than one-shotting and speed blitzing, not even speed blitzing, perception blitzing Ryomen, then you could make the argument that the blitzing of Ryu is more impressive, but it seems more consistent to argue that the special grade heavenly restriction users are kind of just different in terms of raw speed, considering we know that Naobito was supposedly even faster than Yuta. if we're supposed to take the idea that Yuta was known within the quantification of the second fastest sorcerer statement made for Naobito, and then Maki is definitively above that, and then Uraume is definitively relative to that level of speed through being able to tag Maki, and then they got Perception Blitz. So, realistically, it's up in the air. If you want to say that Yuta's slower than Naobito because of that statement made for Naobito, and then Naobito should be slower or at least within the reaction range of Maki, and then Uraume should be within the reaction range of Maki, and then bada bing, bada boom, they slap each other up a little bit, and then we have Gojo absolutely perception blitzing Uraume, then that's better than anything Sukuna has speed feed wise, because even a perception blitz of Ryu would not be as impressive in this context as a perception blitz of Uraume, because Yuta would be slower than Maki in this context. So thusly, relativity to Yuta versus relativity to Maki in terms of speed would be more impressive on Maki's side. Though I see the argument for the other side, and I can definitely see the argument that, once again, we do not know how fast a full power Sukuna is. We just don't. Like, legitimately, there's just nothing that we can really offer to that. And notably, we can't even seem to agree in the community on whether or not the fingers and their cursed energy actually amp speed. That's a constant debate that goes around. So realistically, the conflict here much more comes down to the idea of what's the most simple scaling chain to go with, and that would be Gojo Perception Blitz Uraume relative to Maki faster than Naobito, second fastest sorcerer, Yuta is a sorcerer, Yuta slower than Naobito, even if it's like 0.1000% slower, still slower than Naobito. Yuta relative to Ryu relative to Yuta, Ryu gets perception blitzed. That's not as impressive as someone being able to tag Maki, which is Uraume, and then Uraume gets perception blitzed by Gojo. Uraume would just be higher on that scale, essentially. The only counter argument to that is that Maguda was able to react to Gojo and, like, jump in and save Kenjaku's life. It was fine. Once again, the idea of Gojo going all out in that scenario, unlikely, and also the idea of Maguda going all out in that scenario, unlikely. Once again, I would give the edge to Gojo, but I can perfectly see the argument for full power Sukuna here. So let's move on to the Haxadaxis. Now, if you couldn't tell by how I was discussing the power and the speed, both of those are kind of up in the air because of the general vagueness about the full power of these two characters, but something we definitively know most of about both of these characters is their hacks. Notably, Gojo, despite having one of the most powerful kits, actually has a really simple kit, with the main things that make him broken being his domain, his hollow purple, and obviously the neutral limitless, the infinity. To explain the infinity in full would break my brain, so I will just say things cannot touch Gojo ever. Like ever. And even if you have a technique that's supposed to negate that technique, Gojo can reinforce that technique so that you can still never, ever touch him. He can broaden the range of it so it's like barely above his skin, and or broaden the range of it so it's like reaching out a couple feet, which is what he did to absolutely annihilate Hanami. That is the limitless neutral. Then we have a limitless regular, which would be blue. Blue does the Megazuck, and by the Megazuck, I mean literally just the Megazuck. It literally erases a point in space, and then space being space is like, oh wait, that's not good. What we gonna do? We gonna do the Zuck so we can fill in this empty space. And then bada bing, bada boom. It'll drag things in. Blue, pretty nasty. It can be used to redirect attacks, redirect people, grab people, do damage to people, and level entire areas by literally tearing them apart. Then we have red, which is literally just the exact opposite. It pushes everything away. It seems to like overwhelm a certain amount of space within an area with so much like force and power that the space is like, whoa, we need to do the anti-Zuck, and then it throws everything away at maximum velocity in order to make sure that, you know, the maximum velocity things get blown away. This is mainly used as a repelling technique, as it's in its nature to repel. And then we have the big boy, the bad boy, the mean boy, that thing that is hollow and you know that it's purple. Might as well call it, let me not. But regardless, this thing is pretty weird in terms of what its hacks implications are. Some people think it's like existence erasure. Some people think it's just like a giant energy blast. Somewhere in between. Who knows? Because I don't even think Gege does. So all it is a massive purple blast that absolutely tears through anything it comes in contact with. Whether you be human, curse, flesh, tree, like it doesn't matter. You will get absolutely torn through if you get hit with hollow purple. So that is the majority of the limitless technique, but there are a few extra things that Gojo has access to. Number one of those being the Six Eyes. This allows Gojo to essentially have unlimited stamina and unlimited cursed energy through the purest optimization of cursed energy. Through the Six Eyes, he's able to waste little to no cursed energy at all on any of his techniques, meaning that he could literally fight forever. Like forever, ever. Like forever, ever. Like legitimately broken, just keep on going and keep on going. This is even greater to the extent of characters like Yuta and Kenjaku. Kenjaku has extremely high amounts of cursed energy, and Yuta literally has stated boundless amounts of cursed energy, but Yuta flatly admits, hey, I ain't gonna lie to you. Gojo Sensei is always better because he would literally never run out. So Gojo can literally spam all of his techniques on end because they literally take nothing from him in terms of cursed energy amount. That doesn't mean that they are weak in any sort of shape or form. It just means that the cursed techniques are so perfectly optimized that he would never have to worry about fatigue or running out of cursed energy. Then he has the RCT, the reverse curse technique. This allows him to heal himself and also fuel the technique of red and allow him to use purple through fueling red and fusing it with blue. Now, RCT does have its limits. Notably, we have yet to see someone like regenerate like a massive portion of their body. Someone like Hikari, who had genuine infinite amounts of cursed energy, was able to regenerate whole parts of their torso and even entire arms in seconds. And if you want to argue that through the Six Eyes, Gojo has that level of cursed energy efficiency and he could hypothetically do the same, then maybe, but I'm not exactly sure how well implied that is. But that is the best RCT regen feat we've seen, Hikari being able to regrow his arm. That's about it. Like, other than that, we have not seen a higher level of RCT from humans in particular. We've seen curses regenerate from insane amounts of damage, but even still, usually it's like an arm or a leg or something minor. Gojo being able to do anything higher than that, like hypothetically regrow his whole body or like both of his arms or his legs or anything like that, that seems a little bit out of the air. But this RCT also allows him to, once again, be like basically limitless in terms of stamina too, because bro can just keep re-upping himself. His brain is on a constant refresh, his body's on a constant refresh because he's using that RCT so efficiently. So Gojo, really strong, really simple for the most part, and very broken. But the major thing that makes him uber super broken is that domain expansion that he can pop as many times as he wants because of the efficiency of his cursed energy, Infinite Void. Now Infinite Void is essentially an auto win button, because it literally just shoves so much information into the opponent's head that they immediately get paralyzed the moment they are hit by it. Notably, it seems like Jogo gets affected, at least in the anime, before the domain is even like properly closed. Like, it's not fully enclosed in a barrier before Jogo gets absolutely paralyzed. And with this paralysis, it appears that people can't even control their very cursed energy, as Gojo was able to simply palm Jogo's head and tear it right on off. He can use this as many times as he wants, as quickly as he wants, as fast as 0.2 seconds, folding in the activation of the domain with the technique itself, meaning that if Gojo opens domain, usually you've lost. And with that being the case, we have to hop to the other hacks piece in this fight, and that is Sukuna. Now Sukuna, with Megumi's body, has a couple things in his kit, and also just in his regular body, he has a couple things in his kit. And he also has a whole bunch of unknowns, but we obviously cannot talk about the unknowns, for they are unknown. The main thing that he has is what we now know as Shrine. This ability is what allows him access to the abilities known as Cleave and Dismantle. Cleave is what allows him to cut through things that are infused with cursed energy, while Dismantle is used to cut through things that do not have cursed energy. He can use either on anybody though, it's just that one adjusts to toughness, and that is Cleave. It usually adjusts to the cursed energy toughness of the target and tears through. Meanwhile, Dismantle, since it attacks things without cursed energy, it kind of just slashes through things without cursed energy. These can be adapted to and seemingly blocked and reacted to, but that's only shown by Maharaga. You know, Maharaga? Like that thing that can adapt to literally anything. So that's kind of a cheat thing. However, these things are not instant one-shots if Sukuna is not taking his opponent seriously, or seemingly enough if his opponent is durable enough or has enough raw power. Because we see Ryu is able to eat one. Specifically one. We don't know if he got hit with Cleave or Dismantle, Gege really clarifies that. There are a bunch of different theories on which one is which whenever he uses them, but I don't necessarily know. I just know Ryu managed to eat one, so these are not automatic cut through you no matter who you are kind of techniques. Sukuna does need to put a good bit of juice behind it before it just tears through anybody. So it won't just tear through anybody. And with that being the case, those are the two major aspects, cleave and dismantle, but then he has his domain expansion, which is known as Malevolent Shrine. Now the thing about Malevolent Shrine is that it's a shrine that's malevolent. AKA, it's cleave and dismantle for 200 meters and it absolutely tears everything apart around you. The reason is 200 meters, the largest domain expansion that we've ever seen in the series, is because the barrier is not there. And or I've seen arguments that no, the barrier is there, but it's just like unclosed. So that's what it means by like painting on air. Like you don't trap somebody in, but you still get the direct hit effect. Whichever it is, it's still a massive domain expansion that tears you apart, which it does through cleave and dismantle to flatten everything around it. Still super duper impressive. However, the new stuff, the fancy stuff, the juicy stuff, if I have to say so myself, comes from the 10 Shadows technique that Sukuna now has access to. Obviously, he has the Divine Dogs. Notably, they're not as big as I thought they would be. They're about like maybe a little, they're about as big as a motorcycle, and they can run around and cut you up. Then you have the Rabbit Escape, which allows you to escape with rabbits. Like, there's nothing really else they can do. I mean, they can be a smoke screen, a rabbit screen, but that's about all they can do. Then you have Piercing Bull, something that Sukuna himself debuted. This is kind of useless against Gojo, but it does build up with power the farther it charges. Whether it's based on its initial charging point or literally how much it charges ever since it spawned is kind of unknown. Then he has Tranquil Deer, which is a deer that's tranquil, and it gives him complete and continuous access to RCT that gets released from the deer. And then he has a little something called Nue, and by little I mean it's a skyscraper-sized thunderbird that can drop massive lightning bolts. Very concerning, if I do say so myself. A little bit concerning, in fact. Then he has Max Elephant, or as he likes to call it, Myriad Elephant, which is a gigantic elephant that he can drop on people. And while we do not see it use the massive Hosidos, it should realistically have the massive Hosidos that can absolutely flood an entire area. Just absolutely flood a whole battlefield, which is unbelievably disgusting. Then he has the Toad, which is a frog that does froggy things. We've never seen Sukuna use this one, but literally it can just be used to restrain an opponent or catch them or lick their toes, whatever you're really into. And then finally, we have the big one, the big guy, the beefy boy himself, Maharaga. Now, this is essentially the second hacks kit of Sukuna. Like, notably, he can put on Maharaga's big old spinning treasure wheel thing and adapt to phenomena for Maharaga, which allows Maharaga to come out pre-adapted. But Maharaga's main thing is adapting to any and all curse techniques or abilities that are used against it, as long as it can survive the initial hit. If it cannot survive the initial hit, then well, it perishes. But with that being the case, Maharaga is very strong as well. And the adaptation ability is perfect against someone like Gojo. But we'll get into that more when we cover the battle. Finally, he can use fire arrows. Like, not the Legend of Zelda ones, like, no, like literal arrows of fire that are even stronger than Jogo's fire attacks that cause massive detonations and explosions that absolutely level entire areas. Yet, Sukuna really is like that. However, we don't know if he has access to Chimera Shadow Garden. Realistically, he should. There's no reason he shouldn't, but we have not seen it yet, so I shall not say it does exist. But if he does have access to Chimera Shadow Garden, he gets all the Shikigami unlimited. For a limited time only, he gets all the Shikigami unlimited. He also has RCT, like the highest level of it, to the point where he can heal other people with it. Like, that's absolutely insane how good his RCT is. But even still, with him being in a general vessel, we do not know the upper limits of his regen. Like, hypothetically, if he were to lose everything but his head, I do not believe he'd be able to come back from that, even though it's stated that RCT comes from the head. Maybe he could, but he is currently in a, like, fleshy vessel. Maybe if he was just a curse, he could, but I'm not sure about him being in a regular human body for the most part, and then having his head torn off. So, overall, the hacks are pretty darn good, but I would give the edge to Gojo in terms of sheer quality of hacks, as his simple hacks in the neutral limitless literally negates, like, almost all of Sukuna's attacks, except for a certain word that starts with a D and ends with an O main. But let's hop into the final section before we talk about the battle itself, the narrative. Now, you may be wondering why I'm covering narrative in a versus battle, considering, like, this is like a battle that's going to happen within the narrative. And it's for that reason specifically. Like, we have no context for these characters at full power. Like, legitimately, we have absolutely no context for these characters at full power. We don't even know if we've seen all their hacks. Considering Gojo has stayed on multiple occasions to do literally anything, we haven't actually seen a maximum technique for the Limitless. We've just seen maximum outputs. Like, Hollow Purple is not the maximum technique of the Limitless. I don't think so. It could still exist. That's Gojo. We still have not seen the final Shikigami of the Ten Shadows technique. We don't know if Sukuna has any other techniques other than the Flame Arrow. We have no idea on whether or not he can use Chimera Shadow Garden. We have no idea how efficient his Cursed Energy output is, though it seemingly is pretty efficient. We still have no clue exactly. This is very up in the air, and I'm doing this video right before they fight because I think it'd be cool to have this as a little time capsule beforehand. However, let's talk about the narrative and why I do believe that it's favoring Gojo in this fight. One, I need you to remember what the publishing company is. This is What Jump? Shonen Who? Yeah, this is Shonen Jump. And as dark and as twisted and as evil and as monstrous as Gege has been, I don't entirely see Sukuna walking away with a dub. I do see Sukuna perishing in Megami's body, though. I do see Gojo losing Megami to Sukuna and just bada bing, bada boom. But I do not see Sukuna getting a dub and like taking over the world. So that's one narrative aspect of it. Two, once again, I kind of mentioned this in the power section, but Gojo has just been stated as the strongest, like numerous times. Not just the strongest sorcerer, just like the strongest. We obviously have that one little span of chapter in one of the volumes where it's really just like every single Jujutsu Tech character and even other characters been like, yeah, if there's one thing Gojo is, like, you know, he may be mean, he may be dumb, he may be stupid, he may be built like a stick bug, but he is the strongest. We had that whole interaction within the narrative. We have Kenjaku's whole feelings about Gojo and being like, yeah, I can't just revive Sukuna and have him take care of him. Yet, you know, Gojo's just him. He's just that powerful. He is the strongest. And then obviously you have all the external stuff. Like Gege has called Gojo the strongest on numerous occasions. Literally said that Gojo is literally the concept of strength and the peak and pinnacle of the verse outside of the narrative on like multiple occasions. Bro does not play when it comes to hopping on Gojo like that, even though he hopped on Gojo so hard he put him in a box. So in terms of narrative, I'd have to give Gojo the weight, not only because of the publishing company, not only because he's been stated outside the narrative multiple times to be the strongest, not only because he's stated inside the narrative multiple times to be the strongest, and not only for the fact that he is feared by the other main villain of JJK, but also Sukuna just doesn't have the statements. Like, it's weird to think about, but go and look. When has Sukuna ever been stated the strongest? Like, even full power Heian era Sukuna. Once again, he has some, like, hype statements. Gojo pulling up and calling him an imaginary war god known for decimating the entire golden era of Jujutsu. Crazy. Ain't the strongest, though. Like, it ain't the strongest. Especially not in verse. He's just a really powerful dude. And I think that's kind of where Sukuna's lacking in terms of narrative. Sure, he has all the hype. He has all the build-up. He has 5 more fingers that do who knows what. They either give him more speed, more power, more strength, more techniques, more abilities. All that could all be leaning in Sukuna's favor. But the blatant, and I mean blatant slop of Gojo in the narrative is what really has me leaning towards him. You do not slop a man that hard unless he's really meant to be him. And if there's one thing Gojo seems to be, it's him. Once again, Gege made him the strongest. He was the simplest version, as Gege put it himself, a power ceiling for the verse. So, in terms of narrative, I'm going to have to give Gojo the edge. But enough narrative, enough speed, enough power, enough abilities, enough all that. Let's hop right into the battle itself. Sukuna has to open domain round start. He has to. Like, it's a legal obligation. Like, it's in the contract. He has to open domain round start because nothing else is getting through the neutral limitless. That or Maharaga, but we'll talk about Maharaga in a little bit. Let me explain why every single thing will not hit Gojo. All cleave and or dismantle. We do know that they are things that actually travel. Before we got to see the Sukuna versus Maharaga fight, it was actually assumed that Cleave and Dismantle simply spawned on things, and that is one of the main arguments against the Infinity. Oh, something just spawns on you. It's not traveling anywhere and won't be affected by the space that Gojo creates between them. But no, we know for a fact Cleave and Dismantle do travel. So they would just be like, boop, like right in front of Gojo and then never reach him. The flame arrow would never touch Gojo. We've seen how flames interact with the infinity and stuff like that through Jogo, and those just never touch him either. Piercing Bull would literally just keep bouncing off, if not even be able to really hit Gojo at all. Like, you'll literally just be running in place right in front of Gojo, unable to do anything. You could, and I mean could, maybe argue that the Tranquil Deer could negate the Limitless by existing next to it because it's releasing RCT. But I think if it was that simple, kenjaku would have tried that, for one. And two, I think that due to the fact that the way the Tranquil Deer works is by consistently outpouring RCT, then even if it started to work, something akin to, like, I don't know, domain amplification, then Gojo would realize that and then simply up his own output of the Limitless just enough so that the RCT was being overwhelmed by the CE being put into the Limitless neutral technique, in the same way that Gojo ended up outdoing the domain amplification by the disaster curses in order to re-up his technique just fine. So I don't think Tranquil Deer would work. Divine Dog wouldn't work. Sure, Divine Dog needs to scratch things. What can it not do? Scratch things when it's fighting Gojo because of the neutral Limitless. Then obviously you're going to have Myriad Elephant or Max Elephant or Omega Elephant, whatever you want to call the big old Saharan beast. No matter what, it's not going to do anything. Sukuna could literally drop it from the stratosphere and it would simply float harmlessly above Gojo's hair. Like, legitimately wouldn't even touch his head. And with that being the case, even if it floods the battlefield, we've seen that Gojo can do just fine when stranded 8,000 meters deep underwater. So whatever tirade or hurricane Sukuna drops on Gojo's head with Myriad Elephant would do absolutely nothing. Rabbit Escape is Rabbit Escape. Like, it doesn't do damage to non-combatants. Like, what is it actually supposed to do against Gojo? So majority of the 10 Shadows is absolutely useless. Cleave and Dismantle, absolutely useless. The Flame Arrow, absolutely useless. Everything is just null in the face of the neutral Limitless. That one ability pretty much ignores everything Sukuna has to offer, including the hands. Including Sukuna deciding to throw hands against Gojo. Like, legitimately, if Sukuna tries to punch Gojo, it's not hitting him. Well, that's it. Say Sukuna does have domain amplification, Gojo just ups it. He just says, okay, fine, do that if you want to. I'll just keep on pushing. And then bada bing, bada boom, he pushes back, throws a little bit of that extra cursed energy into the already super efficient Limitless, and then bada bing, bada boom, Sukuna's not touching him anymore. If he ever could. Even with domain amplification. That's done. Then what do you want him to do? Like, Maharaga? Maharaga may be able to, like, maybe adapt to the Limitless, but even then, would it? Like, how? We don't know the upper limits of Maharaga's adaptation, don't get me wrong, and it did manage to adapt to the infinite pressure of the spear that Yorozu dropped, the true spear that Yorozu dropped on Sukuna's head. It did manage to adapt to that, but, like, will it be able to break the paradox that is Tortoise and the Achilles and the Tortoise? Like, would it be able to actually do that? Would it be able to adapt? And even if it did, once again, what stops Gojo from re-upping it, making it stronger? Because we've seen that while Maharaga can adapt to things like Cleave and Dismantle in his fight with Sukuna, the attacks can still be relatively effective. So why couldn't a defense? If all you need to do is make him stronger and stronger and stronger, like we see Sukuna did against Maharaga, then he can just keep making the infinity stronger and stronger and stronger. And I know he'd be thinking, you're slopping Gojo too much. Who are you, Gege? And, like, a little bit, because there's no reason with how efficient the Limitless already is for Gojo, for the fact that it's on literally passive 24/7, and the fact that he literally has so much cursed energy already, and the fact that he has a 6 size, him, like, upping the Limitless neutral by a whole level is not that insane. He could probably just keep on upping it. The bro cannot run out of cursed energy. He cannot get tired. Bro has everything. And that's if he just stands there. I'm assuming that Gojo is just going to stand there and allow Sukuna to drop everything, from all the 10 Shadows to the Flame Arrow to other unknown traveling techniques to Cleave, Dismantle, all of that. It's not like Gojo's going to be dodging or anything, even though he still would be dodging and everything. But with that being the case, that's why Sukuna kind of needs to immediately open domain. Because, like, there's nothing else he can do. Even Maharaga would literally just get one shot. And realize, Sukuna, as great as he is, The reason I didn't mention the Snake Shikigami is because the Snake Shikigami is done. Why? Because Sukuna slayed that bad boy. So every single time Sukuna drops a Shikigami on Gojo and Gojo hits that thing, whether it be with a red, a blue, a hollow purple, whatever he hits it with, then it's done. It immediately perishes. Welp. That's unfortunate. And then Sukuna can't summon them anymore. Notably, this may be the secret key to unlocking the unknown 10th Shikigami, which may be like a perfect counter to the Limitless or something like that. But I don't know. I have no idea about that. And neither do you, as far as I know. Unless y'all Gege. Is Gege in my comment section right now? Does Gege know? Do you know what that final technique is? Because other than that, we don't know that for the 10 Shadows technique. We do not know the ultimate Shikigami. We know Cleave and Dismantle wouldn't work because we know they travel. And even the 3, if you go with the idea that the techniques are stored within the bands on Sukuna's wrists, the 3 other techniques we don't know about are techniques we don't know about. So I can't even begin to speculate on those. So Sukuna has nothing in his general kit that can break past one thing, and that one thing is the neutral Limitless. That's it. Not to talk of all the Shikigami getting manhandled by being pushed to Africa or something by Gojo using a super powerful red on them. Not all of them getting sucked into a dark void or whatever through using blue. Bada bing bada boom, they're crushed and done in. Who's to talk of them all getting just wiped by a hollow purple real quick? And once again, we gotta remember, Gojo can spam these. He doesn't need to recharge a hollow purple. He doesn't need to, like, let me focus on my curse. Broken is pop these. Like Pez, like straight up. He can probably just drop 10 hollow purples one after another if he really needs to. And then bada bing, bada boom. Maharaga, gone. Piercing bull, gone. Tranquil deer, gone. Divine dogs, gone. Myriad elephant, okay. The Myriad Elephant will be kind of difficult. That thing big. But same thing with Nue. But once again, Nue wouldn't be able to do anything. The lightning would try to strike down and hit Gojo, and he'd look at it as it like crackled slightly above his head and then dissipate. Like literally nothing is getting to the limitless infinity. That's how badly it is for Sukuna. So he needs to open domain. But I think the biggest issue is that Gojo also has domain. So what stops him from immediately counter-opening? Like you may say, well, you see, pencil, you fool. Once he activates domain, then he's done. Because you can't activate curse techniques within a domain. But can you? Do they really turn off all techniques? Is the opponent simply absolutely susceptible to never using a curse technique of any sort again? Are they really? Think about it a little bit. Think about it a little bit hard. What did Gojo say when he was first introducing the concept of domains? What can you counter domains with in domain attacks? That's right, Jujutsu. Which implies that Gojo could just use Jujutsu. Like, he could just teleport out of there. And then what's Sukuna gonna do? Chase him down and open another one? Like, legitimately, Gojo could just leave. And even if Gojo doesn't leave, the fact that you can just flat out counter domains with other domains implies that you can also still use Jujutsu in there, which means that Cleave and Dismantle, as crazy as they would be in a massive domain format, probably still wouldn't be able to break through Limitless Neutral. Because, you know, Gojo would probably still be able to use Jujutsu. If he can't, then it's an automatic loss for Gojo. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, once again, I'm in the camp that you cannot, like, RCT anything too crazy. This isn't, like, Bond from Seven Deadly Sins level of regeneration. You aren't going to be able to, like, regenerate yourself from a drop of blood or anything like that. That's not that crazy for RCT. But with that being the case, Gojo would slam or be slammed if Sukuna opened domain, and then Gojo couldn't use any Jujutsu techniques to escape. But since I think he could, I think he 100% could, I don't really see it. I think Gojo would be just fine in domain. And even then, if he hears the words Ryoki Tenkai, like if he sees Sukuna throw his hand signs together in a fancy way, I think he knows what's coming. I don't think he would stand there and let Sukuna open domain. I think he would immediately open his. And while Sukuna's domain is described as divine, godly, like painting on air, an impossible feat, yeah, Gojo could just immediately turn around, hit him with a 0.2 second domain, and then bada bing, bada boom, Sukuna's just mind wiped. Or actually, not mind wipe, mind overfull. Like mind overflow by all the information that's going to be plugged into him by Infinite Void. And then that's it. Because then Sukuna's not moving. Like, notably, maybe that wouldn't work. And the biggest issue for Sukuna is I don't see him round starting with domain. I just don't. Like, I don't. Even knowing Gojo, I do not see him round starting with domain. He's too prideful. He wouldn't do that. Not in character. He wouldn't. Like, the optimal play would be to round start domain and then just end the fight right then and there. But Sukuna ain't gonna do that. Unless I'm mistaken. But he ain't kenjaku. He's not ruthlessly efficient. No, bro would be like, fine. I can fight him. Let me see if I can get past this limitless thing everybody's talking about. Let me see if I can throw hands with it. I think he would try to do that. And I think that would get him in super duper trouble. Because once again, I'm trying to find Sukuna a win con. And he's got one. He's got a singular one. And that is the good old-fashioned Ryuki Tenkai. But let's talk about Gojo's win cons. He only has two. Like, it doesn't necessarily get more fancy than that. Like, even though I do believe Gojo is more powerful than Sukuna, I don't see him literally beating Sukuna. Like, literally, like, fisticuffing him down and, like, knocking him out or anything like that. I do think he's going to have to hacks him. And by hacks him, I mean either hit him with Hollow Purple and wipe that man, and or open domain. Because the thing is, the way Gojo's domain works, if we're to believe it's similar to Mahito's, because Mahito based his off Gojo's, then the moment Gojo opens domain, Sukuna's paralyzed. Not a second later, not a second after. Sukuna would attempt to open his own and he would immediately be paralyzed. And then that's it. Like that's it. I think that's it. Because, like, what else would Sukuna be able to do? Sukuna would not be able to open or counter domain it because he would be literally paralyzed. And then Gojo walks over and is like, I Millie Rock on any block. Purple. And then bada bing bada boom, Sukuna's gone. Like, I don't know. That's it. That's all I got. Like, I have no idea what else needs to be done there. Hypothetically, if Gojo opens with purple, then I could see Sukuna, like, pulling out the Maharaga on his domer and then be like, haha, I've eaten the purple. But can he? Can he eat the purple? Especially considering I established that what I think is a pretty definitive lead due to Gojo's many external strongest statements and power ceiling statements and pinnacle of the verse statements. So a purple should just wipe Sukuna. Like, in order for Sukuna to adapt things for Maharaga, he also needs to survive them. I don't think he's surviving a purple. I just don't think so. I think he literally just gets wiped. I mean, gets wiped or too much damage is done. And notably, this is if, like, Gojo doesn't pull up and point blank purple him. Like, when we've seen Gojo use purple before, it's usually from, like, some sort of distance. Like, when he used it on Toji, it was from a relative distance. When he used it on Hanami, it was from super far away. But Gojo could literally just clap, be in front of Sukuna, and then immediately hit him with the purple. And considering Gojo should pretty definitively be faster, that purple gonna pop off and pop Sukuna's brain off. And he's done. I don't know. I don't necessarily see, like, a way for Sukuna to win unless he does something super out of character and round starts with domain. I just don't see any universe where he does that. Kenjaku could literally tell him, hey, you need to round start domain this man because all of your techniques, hidden or otherwise, will not work. And Sukuna would still go in there and try to punch Gojo in the face. Like, that's it. That's it. I have no idea. Like, Sukuna, like, he's kind of just not built for the battle. Like, unfortunately, Gojo just has pretty much everything over him. The only thing that Sukuna definitively has over Gojo is variety. He has more known techniques and even more unknown techniques. Once again, the only thing we don't know about Gojo technique-wise is whether or not he has, like, a maximum. That's it. Other than that, Gojo has nothing else. Meanwhile, Sukuna has hypothetical 3 other techniques if you go with the band's theory, plus the last hypothetical Shikigami that we don't know anything about, plus the hypothetical Chimera Shadow Guard we don't know anything about. So Sukuna has the edge in quantity, but not quality. Sukuna gets completely overwhelmed in the quality department because none of his techniques work on Gojo except for domain expansion, and Sukuna's not going to open domain expansion round start and try and do that to Gojo, so Gojo would absolutely dominate everything Sukuna has to offer and then immediately either domain GG him or purple GG him. That's unfortunate, but it'd be like that when it'd be like that sometimes. I more so see him domain GGing Sukuna in character in the narrative, though, because he's probably going to do something to try and save Megami while Sukuna himself is paralyzed. Even if Megami has to go into, like, numerous amounts of, like, therapy or recovery therapy or something like that, I could definitely see Gojo opening domain on Sukuna and then That's it. Notably, both these characters are playful. Both of these characters are not known to open domain round start. And I'm not even saying Gojo would. I don't even think Gojo's going to open with purple round start. He may genuinely want to have a little bit of a tussle, a little bit of a fisticuff round with Sukuna. But the moment the gloves come off, and they'll come off faster for Gojo than they do for Sukuna, we've seen it. Gojo's very much more willing to serious up much quicker when there's a serious threat in comparison to Sukuna. Then Gojo just wins. It's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate for Sukuna. He's a super powerful character, super crazy hacks. He has so much to his name. But unfortunately, he just can't beat the strongest. However, that's what I think. Please let what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you guys think I'm tripping? Do you think I'm underestimating Sukuna? And do you think he will slam Gojo? Do you guys agree with me on the Gojo glaze? Or are you somewhere in between? Please tell me that down below. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, because this video ended up being way longer than I thought it was going to be, please leave. What is it? What is that thing he got in like chapter 2? What was that thing he got? I forget. Leave mochi. Leave mochi down below if you made it all the way to the end. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure the notifications miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do a Patreon down below. Each one videos as one, kind of one, down. Exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as 3 months to get the same perks and more. Now, thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Zach with a pencil, writing off.